What's up guys, Andre here, and today I'd like to recreate a few of these masonry style grid layouts. So I had a client saying he wanted a similar grid layout to the 500 pixel site, which you can see here, and I immediately thought to use the popular masonry library. Now masonry is great, but doesn't support the layout that you see here. So if we compare this layout to a masonry layout, say this one, then you'll see that the height varies here, but for this type of grid, the height is the same for each row. Now, it's just personal preference as to which one you prefer, but my client liked this one better, so I had to figure out how to do this as well. So in this video, we'll take a look at both masonry and this 500 pixel style, and we'll also add infinite scrolling. So here's a demo of what we'll be building. Here is the masonry layout, and as you see, actually let me refresh this. And as you see, as you scroll, it loads in more images. And if we go to this URL, we'll get the 500 pixel style. So here is the 500 pixel style, and it also has infinite scrolling here. So for infinite scroll, we'll be making use of this package, which is the same author of Masonry, David DeSandro. So let's go ahead and get started. So I'm going to be working within a Laravel app, even though everything I'm doing is just front end. But for infinite scroll, I'm going to need something like pagination to make it work. So that's why I'm going to be doing it within Laravel. So here I am within a blank Laravel app. Let's go ahead and go to the welcome blade. And let's just start from scratch here. Masonry, masonry. Okay. So let's just go to that in the browser. So what's it called? It's called Masonry Example. Okay. And let's go back to the docs here. And let's go ahead and install it. Let's just use a CDN here, and we'll grab the minified version. And we can just put it down here. Okay. And let's put a script tag here because we're going to need to initialize it as well. So let's go ahead and do that. Let's go to get started. So here is the structure. So as you can see, we have a wrapping div with a class of grid, and then we have a bunch of grid items, and then we just specify that when we initialize masonry. So let's go do that. So let me just make a wrapping div here. That's fine. And I'm not going to worry too much about formatting. And now we can initialize it with vanilla JavaScript. So let's go ahead and copy this. And the query string is grid because that's what we copied. So query selector grid right here. It's just selecting the wrapping div. And then here is where you initialize it, give it the grid, and then give it the item selector as well. So in our case, it's grid item as well. And we can set the column width here too, but I won't do that. So there's no images here yet, but let's see if it arranges it in a grid. Okay, so this doesn't really do anything for us. So let's go ahead and put an image in here, or a few images. So I'm just going to do this for a few images. Just add a image. And let me just add a few here. Okay, so I added 3 here. Let's see if it actually arranges it in a grid. And it does, cool. So let me go ahead and add a bunch of other images as well. Okay, so I've added a bunch of images here, and let's see if it looks okay, and it does, cool. Now it tries to fit the size of your container, and right now I don't have a container. So if I zoom out, it will try to fit as much as it can. So that's pretty cool. Now if you want to add a horizontal gutter here, there's an option for that. So let's go ahead and just add a gutter here. Say 10 pixels, and that should add a gutter. Cool. And if you want a vertical gutter, you have to do that in CSS. So just grab the grid item. It's going to put it up here. Grid item, and then just do margin bottom. Awesome. Okay, now let's take a look at the infinite scroll library. So let's go ahead and install this. So again, we'll just get it from the CDN here. And we'll just grab the minified version, and let's go ahead and add this right here underneath the Masonry package. And let's go ahead and initialize it with vanilla JavaScript. And let's just grab this. And let's put it underneath our Masonry here. Okay, so we are working with the grid as well. And let's leave these blank for now. And this is the same name as this, which is fine. Just going to override it, but let me just change it to 2. So to get infinite scrolling to work, we're going to need other pages that have a similar layout to this, but have different images. So what I'm going to do here is just duplicate this welcome blade and just swap out the images. So let me duplicate this. Let's call it welcome to. And let's make a route for that. And again, you don't need Laravel for this. I'm just using it because it makes it easy to do this using pagination, which I'll show you in a second. But for now, I'm just showing you how it works. So we're going to make another route called welcome. Actually, we'll name it /page/2. And we're just going to return the other welcome here. So let's see if that works. It should be exactly the same thing, but we'll swap out the images. So Masonry Example.test /page/2. Sorry, I don't know what I'm doing. It's /page/2. Okay, so it's the same thing, but I'm going to swap out these images behind the scenes. Okay, so now page 2 has different images. So now there should be a set of different images. Cool. And I'm going to do one more for page 3. Okay, and now there should be a page 3 as well with different images. Okay, so let's go back to the first page. And now we can make use of this infinite scroll. So as you might expect, it's just going to grab those other pages after we specify an option and just append it down here. So let's go ahead and do that. So let's go back to our code, and now we can make use of these options here. So let's specify the path. So what we can do here is set the path in this format. So in our case, like I just showed you, we have this format. So /page/number. So let's go ahead and do that. So /page/number. So the number here, we have to wrap in these curly braces. But since we're using Laravel, we want to escape that, and we'll just escape it with the @ sign. So that's what the path is. You just have to specify the URL for the different pages of images. And right now, like I just showed you, we hard-coded that. We want to append a grid item. So that's just each item here. And then history, we don't need this. I'll show you what it does when it's working. So let's see if this works. Let's go back here. And now we're at the top. If I scroll down, it doesn't work. Let's see what's going on here. Oops, sorry, I forgot one more option here. If you look at the documentation, if you're using Masonry, then you have to add one more option here. Where is it? Sorry, wrong docs. Right here. Actually, it's right here. It's called outlayer. And we just have to set the Masonry instance to whatever we have it set to. So right here, outlayer, it is called Masonry. And now that should work, hopefully. So I'm going to refresh, and as I scroll down, still doesn't work. So it looks like I forgot a dot here for the append, so that should work now. So let me try to refresh, and let's see if it loads in the other ones, and it does. Cool. So obviously that isn't very dynamic. You don't want to be hard coding different pages with different images all the time. So let's go ahead and make use of Laravel's pagination to do this dynamically. So let me show you what I mean. So we no longer need these two pages, but I'll just leave that in there. So let's go into routes web. And for this, we're going to make a new model called image. And then we're going to grab all the images. And let's just do all for now. And then we'll pass that through. images, images, okay? And let's go ahead and make that. So I'm going to do PHP artisan make model image, and let's generate everything. And let's go ahead and open the migration, create image, okay? Let's do table string. And for now, we're just going to have a URL. Okay, and that's fine. And let's go into the image model and set the guarded to an empty array. Okay. And let's go ahead and make a seeder for images. So I believe we created it here when I did /a. And there it is right there. Cool. So I'm going to paste in a whole bunch of creates. So we just create all the images on the back end. And let's make sure to import this. Okay. And let's make sure to use it here. Just image seeder. Okay. And let's go ahead and go back to our welcome blade. Did I save this? Doesn't look like I did. Let's go to our routes. Let's import this. Okay. And let's go ahead and migrate. See if I did this correctly. And it's also seed. Oh, sorry. I have to set my database. Let's go to my environment file. And it's Masonry Example. Okay. Let's try it again. Okay, cool. So now it's seeded as well. And now in our database, we should have this images table with all the images that I've used. Cool. So now, instead of hard coding everything in our welcome blade, we can just loop over everything and grab it from the backend. So we're already passing it in from our routes file here, and we have a variable named images we can just loop over. So let me just comment this out in case someone wants to use this. And we'll make a for each up here. So for each images as image, we'll just grab this and use it here. And now we have an image URL we can use. So image URL. So now this is just dumping everything out. So we don't have pagination yet. So this should just be all the images without infinite scroll. Cool. Okay. So what we want to do is generate those different pages like I did before when I hard-coded the page number here. But we want to make use of Laravel's pagination, and that's easy to do. So let's go back to our routes file. And instead of image all, let me just comment that out. We'll do image paginate. And we'll give it a number. Okay. And now when we do that, we'll now have only 10 per page. So it's still calling the pagination. Let me just turn that off quickly. So go back here and let me just turn off the pagination for a sec. I mean the infinite scroll. So let me just comment that out. Refresh. Okay, now we only have 10 images, but the URL for other images by default in Laravel is page equals and then 2. We'll get the next 2 images, or sorry, the next 10 images, and so on and so forth. So now we can just put this back in, and we can change this slightly to be question mark page equals, and that will use Laravel's pagination. And now this should work with the new pagination. So let's try it from the first page. And let me just hard refresh here. And if I scroll down here, you'll see that it does work. Cool. Okay, so if you noticed while I was scrolling, you saw the URL change here. So that's controlled with the history option. If you want to turn it off, just set it to false. And now, if I refresh, then the URL won't change. Cool. Okay, now let's take a look at some of the options for loading indicators. So if you look at this demo here, you'll see a loading indicator there. It's really quick because it loads fast. And when there's no more content, you have this end of content here. So I believe that's set with the status. Yeah, so just set the option here, and then we'll grab some code for the loading indicator. So if we go back here and go into the code pen demo, we can just grab it from there. And let's just look for page load status. Okay, and let's just grab this. So it's just this. And there's also code for a loading spinner here, which we'll grab as well. So let me just put this after the grid right here. Okay. And when there's no more content, it will display this. You can style this however you want. So let's go ahead and see if that works. Okay. See if the end of content shows up. So it's not showing up. Let's work on the loading spinner first, actually. So if you go into the code pen again, and if you look at the CSS, it says the loading spinner is in a separate pen. So if you go here, we can just grab this and just go in here. So yeah, this is the loading spinner. So let's just grab everything in here and put it in our CSS. Again, you can use whatever you want. I'm just going to use this. So that will go in here. Okay, not too worried about style. And let's see if that actually works in ours. It's going to be quick, but let's just see if we can see it. So it's not showing. I might have to put it within the grid. So let's see. Let's see if we can put it within the grid. So this page load status might have to go within the grid. Let's do that. Try again. Okay, so I set it outside of the grid again, and I throttled my network. So now you should see it. So it's much slower now. You see the loading indicator there. Okay, so it does work. Cool. But let me set it back to normal. And we're not seeing the end of content here. That's because if you look at the network tab, after it's done loading everything, there's only 6 pages. It keeps trying to load stuff. So these pages don't exist, but as you can see, we have an issue here, and this keeps on going. So what we have to do here is just check before each request if there's actually content for that page. So we can easily do that with one line in Laravel. We can just use the abort if helper, and then this will be the condition. So we just have to check if images is empty, and then return some sort of status code, and I believe 204 is no content, and that should be caught as an error in the JavaScript or in the front end, and now we shouldn't get this error. So there we go, and now we get end of content. Cool. Okay, so now we can focus on the other layout, the 500 pixel layout. So after Googling around and trying to figure out how to do this, I came across a few useful posts and pages. So the first one is this long post where someone goes over the entire process of how he figured it out. So you can go ahead and read this. There's examples too. And then I came across this code pen over here. So let me just open this up. Let me close this one too. And this person is using some jQuery, but if you look down here, if I make this smaller, you'll see that the layout does work. And I did more research, and this was actually forked from another code pen, which just uses CSS. As you can see, there's no JavaScript, and it's using a placeholder service, but the grid does work, and there's no JavaScript. And if you look at the comment here, this is where all the magic happens. So the trick with this is you need to know the width and the height of each image beforehand. So for here, he's just hard coding each image because he knows the height and the width. And he's using these formulas to calculate the flex grow, flex basis, and padding bottom. So we have flex grow. So this is based on this image's width and height. So 400 by 600. So if you plug in those values to these formulas, then you'll get these values, 160 and 150% for the padding bottom. And that's basically it. And what this other one is doing with the jQuery, it's doing exactly the same thing. It's just using JavaScript or jQuery to grab the height and the width and then applying it to this CSS here. But yeah, we'll be doing the same thing. But in our case, I'm going to store the width and the height in the backend since we already have an image model. Again, you can do this in the front end if you want. For example, if you want to store the height in the width in the front end with like an attribute, say v width and v height, not v, sorry. I'm too used to view. Like data width equals the width, and then data, you might have to put quotes around that. And then data height equals 600, something like that. That would work too. But like I said, I'm going to do everything in the backend. Well, not everything in the backend. I'm just going to store the widths and heights in the backend. So let's just get this working. At least the grid working. So I'm just going to literally copy and paste everything in here and just see if it works. So let's make a new view here. Let's say, let's call it horizontal.php, blade.php. And I'm just going to paste that in. Actually, yeah, let's do this. Let's call it horizontal masonry. Okay, and then space that in. And then there's some other CSS here. There's not much. I think the only important thing here is, well, a few things. This is important. I think everything with grid is important, but it's not too much CSS. So let's grab this, just put it in a style up here in the head. And that should do it, hopefully. Go to horizontal. Oh, sorry, forgot to make a route. Let's go ahead and do that down here. And say horizontal. And let's just return horizontal. Okay. Cool. And yeah, it looks like it does work. There's some purple bleeding in here, but we can just change the CSS to make it the background color. So I think it's violet. Violet. Yeah, let's just change that to white. Cool. And this is actually responsive as well. So as you resize, you'll see that it is responsive. Cool. So yeah, now all we have to do is incorporate our own images. And like I said, we need the width and the height of each image, which I'll be storing in the backend. And then we can do what we did earlier and just loop over each image that we're passing in from the backend. So this will be a loop here. And then we'll plug it in the width and the height and grab the result of the formula. So let's go to our image seeder. And I'm going to replace all of this with the same thing, but each image is now going to have their associated width and height. So these are the widths and heights of each image. And unfortunately, the images I chose all have the same width. But as you see here, it does work with different widths. The heights do vary though, so it's still going to look pretty good. Okay. And let's go ahead and PHP artisan migrate fresh and seed everything again. Okay. So now our images have widths and heights. Actually, no, I forgot to change the migration here. We have to add width and height here. So let's say unsigned integer, width and height. And now we can do that again. Okay, and let's check our database. Sorry, I was in the wrong project. Let's try that again. PHP artisan, migrate, fresh, seed. Okay, and let's check the database. And now we have the width and the height. Cool. So now let's go into our horizontal blade here. Now we can just for each over them. And let me grab this and put that in here. Okay, and let me just comment the rest of these out. And now we have to pass images. Let's just do this for now. So the flex grow is going to be this formula up here. So width times height divided by height. So width times 100 divided by height, I mean. So let's go ahead and do that. So let's grab this. And we can just do this. And enter the formula here. So width times 100 divided by height. Flex basis. If you're not familiar with flex basis, usually you can just replace that with width. And I have tried it with width and it still works, but we'll just keep the flex basis here. So it's going to be image width times 240 divided by image height. Let's make sure to close that and then tack on pixels here. And for the padding, let's go ahead and add that here. So that's going to be height divided by width times 100. And let's not forget to add the percent here. Cool. And now let's just pass in. Let's start with all the images for now. Just like this. Okay. Cool. And let's see if this works. Sorry, forgot to pass that in. Let's pass that in quickly. Okay, let's try it again. Oops, sorry, forgot to pass in the actual image URL. So that should be here. Image URL. Image URL. Okay, try it again. And there we go. We have our grid similar to the one found on the 500 pixel site. And it was done just with CSS. So now we can combine this with the infinite scroll library. So let's quickly do that. So let's grab all the infinite scroll JavaScript from our welcome blade. Let's change it based on what we have here. So we no longer need masonry because we're just doing it in CSS. But we still need this. Let's grab this. Let's put that in there. Let's put in the script tag down here. Okay. And let's also grab the initialization. So let's grab this. And put it right here. And we still have a class of .grid. So up here. We're still using grid. Cool. So we're going to change this, but this is going to be the same URL because we're just using Laravel's pagination. And we no longer have a grid item. If you look at the structure here, it's just a figure. You can put a class on this if you want, but I'll just stick to figure. And that should work. Figure. We no longer need this out layer because we're not using masonry. We can leave the history to false, and we can also use this page load status. And now we just have to change this to paginate. So let me just grab this. Let's grab this as well. Okay, and let's comment that out and see if this works. Let's refresh. So it's not working here because there's nowhere to scroll, and I don't think the JavaScript gets called unless you scroll. So we have a few options here. We can just actually resize the window and try again. And that seems to work. Cool. Or if you want, you can just change this to a higher number. I'll just leave it. And let's add the scroll in, the loading indicator stuff. So all of this stuff. And the CSS as well. So this would go outside the grid. So outside here. I believe that's the grid. Yep. And let's just put it here. And let's grab the CSS as well. So all of this page load status stuff, or this loader ellipsis stuff. So let me just copy this. So it's all of this. Let's put it in our horizontal. And scroll up and just put it here. And just paste it right here. Cool. And let's see if the loading indicator works, and it seems like it does. Cool. And see if the end of content works. There we go. Cool. So there you have it, guys. We've managed to recreate 2 masonry style layouts, one with the actual masonry library and one mimicking this 500 pixel grid using just Flexbox and CSS. So yeah, if you have an image heavy website and want to lay out your images like this, definitely make use of the techniques I've shown here. Please like, comment, and subscribe if you haven't already done so. Thanks for watching, guys. See you in the next one. Okay, thanks. Bye.